Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? It's your man, Jay Emmanuel, and this is another Right to Real Love live show. Today, I am joined by some very special guests along with my lovely co host, Tatiana. Tatiana, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Excited for today's show. Hey Jay. Hey everybody.
Yes, yo, we got a great topic lined up. Y'all already know that. We have two very special guests joining us. I'm going to start with ladies first. So, Tanzania, would you mind just introducing and letting the people know a little bit about you?
Alrighty. Yeah, my name is Tanzania. My nickname is Tansy. I'm from Chicago, born and raised. I'm 35 years young. I am a single saint. Yeah. And I would say that I was a hard-hearted atheist, probably yeah, I was a hard-hearted atheist prior to becoming a believer. So I've been a believer for 13 years, a little over 13 years now. Currently, I am a corporate account manager for a consulting firm. That's my day trade. But night and by blood, I'm a writer. I'm a two-time self-published author of two Christian fiction novels, and my third novel is forthcoming. It is in edit as we speak. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yo, you out here doing your thing, man. Yo, I love it. And I can only imagine the journey that you've had, prior to becoming a Christian and, the walk that you were walking and now where you are today. Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
story for another time. But yo, whenever you share that story, definitely let me know because I would love to tap in and hear more about your journey and your transition. But I am so excited to have you joining us on the show tonight. And then my man Jose, what's going on with you, bro? Definitely let the real lovers and the listeners know a little bit about you.
Yeah, as he said, my name is Jose Wright Jr. I was born a Seventh Day Adventist Christian. My parents didn't play that, so I was at the church since that young. I am currently looking for work as far as like linear employment, but I am the CEO of my own writing company. Does proofreading, editing, um, and typing and things of that nature. I'm also a writer myself. I write poetry. I have my first book was published last year.
Nice.
It's a book about love in the urban community and whether or not it exists. But it's insight and poetry as a collective. I'm currently working on two other books at the same time, draining but fun. Um,
Mhm.
also, I'm learning to write a movie, so look out for that too. That's going to be fun. So I've been pretty much pushing for the agenda of a love writer because I passionately love to write, passionately love poetry, but I want love to be my essential fragment. So I want people to see how that works. I want people to get that together. But that's pretty much
Yo,
my
that's
folly.
dope. Jose, so excited to have you on here. Yo, we got two authors along with my girl Tatiana. So, yeah, y'all getting this work in when it comes to the writing and the books. And I would just encourage you guys to keep up the amazing work. Quickly, before we get into tonight's topic, want to give a huge shout out first and foremost to Tiffany Smith. We appreciate you for joining us. She says, hello, Jay, Tatiana, guest panelists, and chat mates. We got my girl JD Clay in the building. What's going on? She says, good evening, panel and chat mates. And we got Derek Denard in the building. He says, hey, everyone, we appreciate you for tuning in. Derek, thank you so much for joining us. And then Tiffany says, wow, such a literary group. I love this. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So tonight, y'all know we're talking about a topic that I truly believe needs to be discussed. Tatiana know I had this on my list since we first started planning for this show. And the day has finally come. We're going to talk about why God does not tell women who to marry. So I just want to kick things off with a really, really simple question. I'm going to start with my girl, Tanzania. Did you ever think or did you ever believe that God would tell you who to marry?
Child, I did. I'm glad I actually introduced myself as somebody who used to be an atheist. So coming from the street, not believing in God, not believing in his Bible, I was easily wrapped up into the indoctrination of the erroneous indoctrination of certain things as it pertains to um a plethora of things, including this. And so my mindset was for a very long time. I've been saved 13 years. I would say for the majority of my journey, consisted of that ideology of that waiting on my Boaz, waiting on God to tell me who my husband is. And that was my feverish pursuit to the point where I joined groups Facebook groups in preparation to be chosen, and in preparation for God to actually tell me like this is him. And I got some testimonies on that, but I don't. I'm gonna wait so that everybody can get the opportunity, so I can let y'all know. Yeah, this ain't that. That ain't this. But yes, I have. I have.
Okay, yo, I appreciate the transparency, the honesty. Definitely looking forward to you diving in and sharing a little bit more about your experiences. And really quickly though, let me do one thing and then want to give you a shout out to my man Black Belt in the building, as he always is. He says, yo, I'm ready for this topic. Yo, we ready for your questions too, man. You always had a great questions coming, and I'm looking forward to them tonight. But coming over to you, Jose, what's been your experience? Did you ever think or believe that God would tell you who to marry?
Interestingly enough, at first I figured he would. I used to drink because I used to think about all the time. I've had members in church. I was one of those kids in church who's just awkward, right? And awkward in the sense that most of the kids are playing, having fun after church is talking, and I would sometimes hang with them, but then most of the times I would divvy off and go to one of the married couples in the church, and then I start questioning them like clockwork. Like there's a guy named Hope in my church right now who's just like, yo, you always come to me for questions. I'm like, listen, I'm going to be prepared because when I meet my wife, I'm not having no flaws. I'm not having no mistakes. I'm not repetitiously going to do what most people do. So my brain was like, all right, listen, I need to get it correct. But I used to think about how my romantic journey went, and I used to ask God who my wife is and wonder if God told women. And then, Megan Good had that, recent situation where she said God told her. So I'm like, maybe he does. I don't know if it's audible. I don't know if it's a feeling or just a highlight. But then look what happens afterwards. So it's like, is it God or are we making this up in our imagination? I've had one person told me, honestly, he said, Jose, as a Christian, God doesn't necessarily tell you, but he might give you like a directive to who is good for you or who might be an interesting person for you. If you know their character, if have spent time with them, he might give little hints. But I don't think, my personal opinion, I don't think he would directly be like, all right, this is your wife. But I could be wrong.
Okay, yo, that's fair. We definitely gonna talk about that. I think we've all heard or at least know a few people, even secondhand, who have had these similar experiences. So we're gonna dive in a little bit deeper and get everybody's thoughts and perspectives on it. Before I come over to Tatiana, well, no, let's go to Tatiana, then I'll come to the comment. Black Belt, I'm gonna read your comment right after Tatiana shares her answer to this question. So, Tatiana, did you ever think or believe that God would tell you to marry?
Yeah, I did for a long time, like the specifical, that whole thing. But now I feel like I had to learn some things, and unlearn some things as well. And I just believe that he can give you confirmations on stuff. He could also be specific on, no, this ain't it. And I've experienced the no, this person is not it. So it's like, okay, God, so can you tell us or not? Like, I think we could ask God simply, like, my auntie asked me this, like, have you asked if this person is in God's will for you? You can ask that. But in terms of this is the person you need to marry, I don't think he would do that. And we're going to get into that in this conversation tonight.
Most definitely. And as y'all know, my man Black Belt always comes with the heat. So before I provide my answer, I'm going to go and share his comment. So Black Belt says, I never assumed that God or any spirit, quote unquote, tells us anything. I always found it a bit entitled to assume anyone or anything is supposed to make my life choices the easiest and most convenient. He also added, the awkward thing is this. What if God never tells you to marry anyone? That must be God determined. God says you don't deserve anyone. Or if you don't get what you want, it means that God says that you did not deserve everything you believe you wanted or deserved in a man or woman. And I think he makes some really good points here because you most things are not just in a vacuum. Like there's always going to be either a flip side or another piece to that puzzle. And the points that he's making, like if God doesn't reveal it to you, does that by default mean that you're not supposed to get married if you are expecting him to reveal it? So I think that that's a really great point. I know for me personally, I honestly never had the thought or the belief that God would choose my mate or tell me who it was. Like I'm more so of the person that the mindset I had to change was thinking that I will find like the perfect woman or the perfect wife. And like that was the ideology that had to get crushed for me. But I never had this understanding or this idea that God would be, saying, "Hey, it's her right there." But nah, I appreciate you guys for sharing your experiences for sure. And it looks like we had a few other comments. So let me go ahead and read these. Tiffany says, I think the Rachel and Jacob biblical account caused many Christians to believe this. Yet, if God gives us free will, I always question why he would tell us what to do. God and well, I don't know about that last part. Tiffany, let me know what that last part is supposed to say. God and the guy. Is you supposed to say, oh, I think you may mean like God and the Holy Spirit guides us? Is that what you mean?
I
Because
think so.
that would be my interpretation. So then Derek says, I have been there before. Thought I heard God said that this young woman was his wife, and she said the same thing. We ended up with an emotional trauma and bond, unfortunately. And okay, yeah, he was just correcting that. And Tiffany was saying God will guide us, but never dictate to us. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's right. He will guide us and not dictate us. But no, I think I want to go back to Black Belt's comment, the first one. So I think one of the things that we have to address is, have you ever felt like God was going to like just make these decisions in your life? Do you feel like you had to play a role? Like, was it 50-50, 20-80-20? Like what type of split did you have when it comes to what you're supposed to do and what God's supposed to do in your life? Tanzania, what's been your thought or your perspective on that?
So, and I would say that only in the romantic setting, I felt like God was gonna do all of the do all the work, do all the behind the scenes, and then blop, there goes this magical unicorn of a man. But in other areas of my life, I felt like I had more control, or I won't say control, but more jurisdiction over. So, but it ties back into that ideology of this: when a man find up a wife, he find up a good thing. Where's my Boaz? And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna lead that to solely to God. And so from experience, I would say, because of because I believe God would tell me who my husband was. From experience, I felt like, from experience, I've had five incidents where I thought God told me who my husband was. So that's five different men. So that's like, that's an outfit for every season, and an additional one. So somebody was wrong.
Right, right.
Somebody
So
was
the
wrong.
math isn't adding up. That's
The
a lot of
math
ones.
ain't mathing. The math ain't mathing. And I got so many traumatic. The first time I actually really told the guy, like, God told me God told me that you were my husband. I do not recommend any woman or man don't walk up to nobody and tell them that God told you nothing, because that first guy I told, he spent me for 2 years. He held on to that for 2 years and had me gone. You hear me? Gone. Because in my mind, I'm thinking that's what God told me. So eventually this guy's gonna confirm it. And he like, oh, I could get everything out of this girl without confirming anything to her. And she just gonna keep going, and she gonna keep giving, and no. So yeah, that was the only area of my life where I just relinquished so much control onto God. But all the other areas of my life, I had confidence that I could use wisdom and discernment and make decisions, and have the ability to see, have the wherewithal and the ability to make these important decisions in my life, except for my romance.
Hey, you're not alone, because to Tiffany's point right here, she says, sadly, we make all our decisions independent of God, except in relationships. And, speaking for, women who are believers, and that is a sad reality. Now, I want to be clear and fair and objective, right? I know that doesn't apply to every woman, right? Definitely not every woman that's even a believer. But I think we all can agree that there is a majority of women within the body of faith that have this type of approach to relationships in life, where they a boss, like they a boss when it comes to business, but then when it comes to relationships,
Trash.
they fall for the okey doke for every relationship guru, anybody that will say a prayer, whatever the case may be. And it's like, yo, where's that responsibility when it comes to that part of your life? But nah, that's good. That's good.
Mhm.
So what's been your experience, Jose? Have you believed that, God is supposed to take 50-50? Is it 100% all God, 80-20? What's been your split?
It's interesting, right? Because I've assumed the 80-20 position. I'm not gonna lie. When I first started talking to God, I was like, listen, I'm gonna need you to tell me what to do here because I need you to treat me like a 4-year-old kid. I need guidance because I'm not trying to do what so many men have done before this moment. But it's crazy because the problem with the problem with it is, I think, um, to Tanzania's exact point, God likes to guide us and He allows us discernment. And the fact of the matter is, we're supposed to utilize that discernment in order to make our maneuvers. But when we allow the flesh to consume over the thought process, over the mind, over the spirit, what tends to happen is we go, okay, this person is Christian, this person's in the faith, this person seems to be reading their Bible, everything is fine. But God understands the heart. And what the Bible says, by their fruit you shall know them. So it's like I would pay attention to little things that were flags, but I would never pick up on it. Even though this person goes to church, I'm like, that's something we can fix later. Then 2 years down the road, you're going, what the heck was I thinking when God showed you those flags prior to the moment you began? So I really believe that at least 60% is God's guidance, and then the rest of it we literally have to make the choice, the conscious decision to move in accordance to what we feel. But a lot of people, and I'm very much guilty for this, allow chemistry to do more work than compatibility, and that's where everything gets wrong.
All right. Okay. Tatiana, what's been your experience? What type of split do you have when it comes to your expectations of God's role?
Probably like a 75-25. Like I always like getting confirmation from God, even if outside of the relationship perspective, because I want that kind of relationship with God where it's like, all right, am I doing the right thing? It's like a fine line though, between trusting God and making decisions based off of fear. So sometimes as believers, we can get discouraged by the divorce rates in and outside of the church. We can get discouraged by maybe the lack of healthy marriages we've seen around us. We can get discouraged by the fact that we're over a certain age and we're still not married yet. And then we're like, it has to be 100% correct or I'm not doing it. And then we overlook certain red flags with some people, or we don't give some people grace when God could be allowing this person into your life. So it's like it's a fine line, honestly. And I think when it comes to that part, there's a lot of responsibility that we have to take for ourselves. I believe that now that I'm older and more mature, the relationships that I was in before 30, I haven't been in a romantic relationship or had a boyfriend in my 30s ever. But in my 20s and late teens, I would say like those decisions to be in relationships with those people were led not by God. They weren't the right things. They weren't based on the right things. Maybe it wasn't my time to be in a relationship. We have to consider that. Is it your season to be in a relationship? Maybe God is trying to tell you, nah, sis, that's not your season. That's one way that God can tell you something instead of directly telling you this is who you need to marry or not. Then you can overlook the warning signs because you're drawn away by your own lust. What does the Bible say about that? You know what I'm saying? We get drawn into temptation and we fall off. We fall off track because they got the 3 6s, 6 feet, 6 figures, 6-pack abs, and we get caught up in that. Who hasn't? Who hasn't? Let me know. But sometimes we just young and dumb and we're not thinking with our supernatural instincts that God gave us, or going with what the Holy Spirit is leading us to do. We're ignoring those gut instincts. We're ignoring those warning signs. Some people I know even get divine dreams where they get told in their dream symbolically, this person is not good for you. It may not even be as clear like that, like verbatim, this person isn't good for you. It may be a symbol like, oh, this is not good. This is not clean. I don't feel good, with this dream. Obviously, this person represents something. Think about that. So I would consider all those factors. instead of relying 100% on God, I need you to crack the sky and tell me that this person is the one, or what many of us women do, God, can you just drop them off at my front door? I know a lot of y'all be getting us, a lot of the brothers be getting on the Christian ladies about that. We don't want, I don't want that. Would you really want to marry a stranger who comes up to your door? We're a little too suspicious of people nowadays. We are not about to do that. And if God told you, come on, let's be honest here tonight. If God told you someone you never met before as your husband, and they might not initially be that attractive, are you going to say, yes, God, thank you, God, for answering my prayers? Don't lie to me in this chat today. Don't lie to me on this live today. You're not about to lie to me today. That's it. That's it, Jay. Get me off of here.
Nah, that's real talk. That's real talk. Yo, we had some really great comments that came in. Let me go ahead and share these. First and foremost, want to give a huge shout out to my man Andre. He joined us on the live show last week, and he's here showing us some love. He says, "Good evening," and to me and everybody else that's on the panel, definitely, guys, if you haven't already, go check out the Harrison Family Values channel. My man Andre is definitely dropping some amazing content. Definitely appreciate you for tuning in and joining us on the panel last week. Now, we had this first comment that came in from Derek. He said, it is especially common when you both are in ministry together, because we both did ministry, praying together daily and even having Bible study in her home. We thought God had put us together for sure. That right there, yo, that's real talk right there. That is real talk. And then want to give a huge shout out to F Doctor. Yo, you have been showing so much love on the videos that have been going up on the channel. I really appreciate you leaving comments. So glad that you could join us tonight. And F Doctor leaves this comment, says, God presents the presentation, but allows us the choice. Grace, wisdom, and forgiveness come along with our choices, whether right or wrong. That right there, wisdom, wisdom. And then I think we had one other one from my man Black Belt. He says, I mean, going for a guy that has a six pack, 6 figures, and 6 feet is not an issue. Just need to move smart and pick wisely and ensure you match your desires. So, really great comments coming in from everybody. Yeah, so I got another question. Let me start with my man Jose on this one. I want to know, do you personally think that most women who are believers tend to take this hands-off approach? Do you think that they prefer to do that when choosing their spouse?
Honestly, they probably, I believe some of them do. I won't say most. I do believe some of them do, because I've had dialogue with young women in my church, before they went off to college and things of that nature, and then women who are in my age bracket, etc. And a lot of them are like, some of them want God to be like, listen, Lord, give me my husband, please, because I'm not trying to do this hunting thing. But then there are quite a few women who are like, listen, I'll be in church every week. My eyes are smooth, wide open, and I'm trying to see what I can, like, we got to get this together. And then I try to have like serious conversations with them, because I always tell them, like, I understand my gender enough to know you have to be very protective of yourself and who you are. And God will, allow you to make the decisions that you need to make, because every wrong decision is a lesson if you're paying attention to the lesson. And a right decision, praise God, because it doesn't seem too common. So it's like, I really feel as though that the hands-off approach is taken by quite a few women. I think it needs to be properly minded more often than not. But I think women need to be just be cautious regardless of what choice they make. Yeah.
Nah, that's good. That's good. Before I come over to you, Tanzania, I want to give a huge shout out. We got my girl Chantal in the building. What's going on? Says evening to everyone. So glad to have you joining us tonight. And then my man Derek says, what if it's an assignment and not a marriage that God is telling us to focus in that season of our life, not necessarily marriage at that moment? And as you can see, the people in the chat are letting them know that that was a good one. Tiffany says, great point. And so does Chantal. So yeah. So what does he say? Derek says, the next live, you need to let me on the, yo, by all means, man, reach out to me and we can make it happen. It'd be an honor to have you come on and join us on the next discussion, man. So Tanzania, what's your take? Do you feel like most women who are believers prefer to take that hands-off approach when choosing their spouse?
I think because it's been indoctrinated in us with this scripture, he who finds a wife findeth a good thing. I think that's like the overarching factor or reason why women take the hands off. Some women take the hands off approach. And I've been seeing it for years lately. And I just seen it, I think it was yesterday in a public post and comments, and so many people, he who finds a wife findeth a good thing, he who findeth a wife find, oh my God, I'm like, if y'all don't stop spitting that scripture out, I'm going to pull out my edges. But and I think it's because I don't think it's just like something that is naturally ingrained in us. It's something that's been biblically ingrained in us, to the point where we can't even tell a guy that we're interested in them because we're using that scripture wrong or mistakenly. So yeah, some women have been taking that hands-off approach only because they've been biblically trained or biblically taught that the man is supposed to be the one to pursue them. And I'm not saying that you're because approach and pursuit are two different things. So if you see someone that you're interested in, say something to him. Then, and is there some women, like Tati said, just believe that God is gonna plop somebody right in front of their door, and then they just go magically be their husband. It's like, that's not how it's gonna happen, sis. It's not gonna happen, especially during a panorama. So but so we kind of that scripture has handcuffed us, almost, women, to the point where if we see somebody, we think they just supposed to have telekinesis or to be able to read our mind and know that we like them. Like, tell the man you like him. If you saw him first, just say something. It doesn't mean that you're overstepping your femininity. It doesn't mean that you are overstepping your biblical bounds. If you see someone that you're interested in, and get over the fear of rejection, say something. But using it, I believe we need to two things. We need to divorce ourselves from the fear of rejection on both ends. And the second thing, on both ends, we need to divorce ourselves. I don't want to use the word divorce. I hate that word. Divest ourselves from the idea that God just picks our spouses anyway. At the end of the day, we just need to, because it creates unnecessary bondage, and unnecessary depression, unnecessary turmoil, mental turmoil, unnecessary emotional wounds, when we just we like teddy bear hugging this idea that God picks our spouses for us. And for the last 5 years, I've been having the same vision of like this gymnasium with the girls on one side of the gymnasium, the boys on the opposite side of the gymnasium, and the main floor of the gymnasium is bare. Nobody dancing, music popping, the disco ball rolling. Nobody's dancing because they waited for somebody to tell them to dance. And every time I ask God, I'm like, what does this mean? I know what it means, but give me more revelation onto this. And he told me, he was like, my scripture is the music, and nobody wants to dance to it. Nobody wants to use the scripture to feed their spirit, that will give them the confidence and just the confidence to make a decision like this. I know it's one of the most important decisions you can ever make in your life, but we're not utilizing the scriptures to be our soundtrack, to be our playlist. And so we're just on the opposite sides of the gymnasium, and we won't dance with each other. I went off on a tangent, my bad. But
Nah, you dropping gems. You dropping gems, and people are enjoying it for sure. Shout out to my girl Brittany. We appreciate you for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for coming through. All right, so we had a few comments before I come up to you, Tatiana. So first one was from my man Black Belt. He says, "Hey, I gotta be fair. It ain't just Christian women saying God will do it for them. Plenty of women say, I'll just meet him at the grocery store, or my husband will find me." And I think that is accurate. It's not just a Christian thing. We can't just say it's just Christian women who have this ideology or this perspective when it comes to meeting that right God. And then we had a comment that came in from F Doctor, says, yes, when he findeth a wife, but what is he going to find when he finds you? Make sure your house is in order, ladies. And that's real talk right there. I've said it on plenty of podcasts in the past. is that, it says he who finds a wife. But when I talk to, or in the past, when I've talked to women, they're not preparing themselves to be wives. So it's just like, it doesn't say he who finds a woman. Are you a wife? And, I just like to always make that distinction because it's there. Definitely is a distinction. So let's see. We had some okay, yeah. So we got some other comments that's coming in, letting you guys know y'all dropping some real gems, letting y'all know that that was truth what Tanzania was saying. So yeah, man. Also, again, Derek is giving you shout outs as well, Tanzania, for what you shared. Now, coming up to you, Tatiana, what's your take? Why do you think some women who are believers prefer to take this hands off approach?
I agree with what was shared earlier. Definitely. Like, it seems like we kind of like the purity culture thing and the problems that people have found with purity culture. Like, they kind of kept women from showing initiative because they haven't given us the practical tools in regards to engaging with the opposite sex. And so there's a semi-viral video now of a Christian brother talking about how women in the church are awkward and he don't want to be talking to them, something along the lines of that, because it's like, again, we haven't been given those practical social skills with the opposite sex. It's like we have been empowered as women everywhere else, but in the dating for marriage category, we can break records in politics and business and education. But when it comes to really having those soft skills to engage with the opposite sex and treating them like the opposite sex, not like a fellow woman, because that seems to be an issue in communication for us. It's like we're not getting it. But there are coaches, there are resources, there are ministries out there that are helping. It's just slowly but surely we're getting there. And I think sometimes we as women have to fight the pride that we're the prize and we don't have to change anything about ourselves because we were taught up and brought up to be wives, and therefore we got it together. The men don't have it together. We got it together. Something's wrong with them. No, maybe it's you. Maybe it is you. Maybe it is you. I think we, again, besides the showing interest part, we haven't been taught to vet properly. Honestly, going from my experience, just off of people I know, I was never taught directly from parents, aunties, cousins, friends, how to vet a man. I had to learn that off the internet and probably had to like literally look at the Bible and hold the standard up of what a holy person, a holy man should present himself to be in the world and line that up to what I'm seeing with this person that I'm engaging with. We have to at some point really recenter, like really reset what those vetting tools and standards are. And then we're made to rely on men who may not have been prepared either. That's another situation we're running into. We already know there's an epidemic of not that many men in the church. And if there are men in the church, they're already taken by a woman, and some are taken by a man. And you can jot that down. And there's honestly too many opinions and anecdotes shared about what the blueprint for a successful relationship is. So there's a lot of confusion on the internet. And it's like we're not taking time to really seek out if we're, again, ready to be in a relationship, like someone shared earlier. If we know what we're doing in the first place, do we even know why we want to be married? And then, who are we going to choose? We need to
A
have
lot of gems, man. Yo, that that
understand.
that was a whole lot of gems, and I appreciate you for sharing that. Thank you, Tatiana, and I appreciate you for letting them know that 3 times. You just had to say it. Sometimes you gotta be repetitive when you drop in some gems. So yeah, that's real. That's real. So first and foremost, let me give a huge shout out to my girl Krista. We appreciate you for joining us tonight. So glad you are here. And before I come over to my man Jose with our next question, we got a few chat messages. So let me go through these really quickly. F Doctor says, yeah, today's culture acts like singleness is a disease or a life sentence. Maximize your single season. It's all right. Your maker is your husband until the season change. So yeah, I totally agree. You should definitely be making the most of your single season. Don't look at it as a disease. Don't look at it as a life sentence. That's definitely not the perspective to take. Appreciate you for sharing that. So then Derek says, I think people are searching for a physical soulmate, but spiritually, who stops and asks God what's in that person's heart, mind, soul, and what baggage are they carrying from the past or their childhood? Yes, Yes, I mean that kind of goes back again to what Tatiana was sharing with regards to the fact that nobody's teaching you how to navigate relationships, and that's the thing. I feel like the one thing that isn't being taught is the one thing that people think they got figured out, and I find that to be so ironic. It's like people think that they know how to do relationships so well, but all you gotta do is look at the results, and you see that that is not the case. All right, so we got a few more that came in. Let's see. So F Doctor is saying, yes, get healed and whole. Krista says, OMG, way too many blueprints on how to be single, to be a wife, etc. She says, and a lot of it is not biblical, but just opinion. That
Jay,
right there. That's real
Can
talk.
I add something quick right there?
Yes.
And to Krista's point, they're exploiting Christians who want to be married. All these little programs, coaches, and whatnot, they're exploiting people based off of our emotional desire to be loved and validated by marriage. Y'all better tap into the psychology of marketing because they're using it against us, even in the so-called Christian influencer circles. Think about it.
That's real talk, and that actually is going to tie into my next question. So yeah, I'm glad you already are, you revved up for that. So yeah, it's gonna get good. Like Krista's saying, that's facts. F Doctor is saying yes. So let's see. I think we had a few more. So Tiffany says yes. The practical social skills are lacking to ensure success while dating. Tatiana is on fire tonight. Yes, she is for sure. And then my man Black Belt says the single season is not a disease, but it should not be downplayed if marriage is your desire. I totally agree. I never tell someone to enjoy your fat season if they ultimately want to be a fitness model. Right, right. I think that he makes, once again, another great logical point, which is you have to be able to understand that there's a desire and then there's a reality. And sometimes people's reality isn't matching their desire. So then that's where responsibility comes in. And you have to ask yourself, what must I do in order to make my reality match up with the thing that I desire? And to his point, if you thinking your single season is a disease or you thinking it's a life sentence, like the previous comment, then you're going to have a negative perspective towards working to get yourself into a relationship with the right person. So yeah, once again, man, so many gems. I mean, y'all are on fire in the chat tonight. Hold on. We got two more that came through. Derek says, Tatiana speaks the facts. I never heard my aunts, mommy, grandmother, anybody tell me, any of the young ladies in the family how to be a wife. Likewise, my grandfather, uncle never showed me how to be a husband. Real talk. Krista says, exploiting your pain to some degree and making us think something is wrong with us. That's real talk. You're talking about those influencers again. And then my girl Chantal says, yes, Tatiana, I came across this series recently, The Ultimatum. I have so many thoughts toward that. Just goes to show that people want to get married for the wrong reasons. All right. And yeah, once again, reality versus fantasy. All right, man. Like I said, keep those amazing comments coming. I'm coming to my man Jose. Sorry I kept you waiting so long. But yo, here's the next question, man. I want to get into what we were just talking about. Who do you personally think has led women astray when it comes to relying on God to choose their husband? Who do you think
Oof.
that's on?
Ooh, that's a loaded question because eh, honestly, from what I've seen, it's either one or two culprits. It's either the church, which is the biggest one in my opinion, and probably the main target, or parents, or like fathers and mothers. It's usually one of those two sets. Now, I'm sure there are other situations where, the ladies have other have other answers and responses, but I've literally watched people in church go to young girls, and girls will be looking at guys in the church and, mommy, he's cute. Oh, no, no, no. Let me tell you something. And then they'll sit down and have a whole dialogue. And I'll just be looking like this as I hear the misinformation about, what's supposed to be happening, how God is going to provide for you. It's insane because a lot of women are coming up into the space where they feel like they can't make a decision for themselves. It kind of demotes and degrades a woman's capability to be decisive, to be able to make proper decisions, to be able to be discerning, and it kind of removes it gives the idea that a woman can't think for herself. And honestly, it's not fair to women. A lot of times, a lot of people. A lot of women, let me be specific, do understand that they have made improper choices, and therefore those past experiences become a catalyst for their self-degradation in a sense, where they feel like they can now not make the choices that they should make because there's a history of improper choices. But this is where growth comes in. This is where the idea of learning and growing, being consistent. So it's like a lot of times women come to this age. Like, I'm almost 40. I'll be 30. I'll be 38 in June, and I've seen women within my age bracket who come up and be like, I'm not going to get married before 40. I make all the wrong decisions prior. We'll have dialogue. I'm like, you can't say that. You don't know what God has for you, number one. And then number two, you have to believe in yourself, because essentially, again, my favorite verse is Hebrews 11, verse 1. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That has moved everything that I've done within the last 2 years, including the book I spoke about. And we have to have a dialogue with one another and start removing all of the scars that we've caused ourselves, healing those, the pains, the traumas of those past experiences, and building the confidence so that discernment can become something that's not just understood, but embraced. And then when the choices to the decisions to look for those men and be mindful of who comes into your life, when those things happen, you can make better decisive choices and make sure that you're not hurting yourself.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yo, y'all on fire tonight, man. Yo, y'all are on fire tonight. So we got a few comments that came in. So Chantal says, marriage was created by God, not man. Gotta go to the source for guidance. My girl Krista had this comment. She says, work on yourself, of course, but sometimes it's really just not our time. That's why these topics, I don't know at sometimes. And my girl Tiffany says, we have a responsibility to make sure that the next generation doesn't get so misdirected. I totally agree. And let's see. So Derek is loving Tiffany's comment. And F Doctor says, yes, Jose, everyone's experiences are different. That's real talk. So let's hear from a woman. Tanzania, who do you think is responsible for leading women astray, thinking that God is going to choose their husband?
Of course, the church. Of course, the church be and I don't want to be so hard on the church, but because the overall demographic of the church is primarily women, the topics have been geared towards women, and because primarily the leadership within the church are men, women have been susceptible to the teachings of men within the church. And then you couple that with parental guidance, like Jose said, and the lack thereof. So it's like this ball of erroneous teaching mixed with some truths, half truths, is the subsidy of what we didn't receive when we got home. And then we have the birth of social media. And here comes all of these Evan Amuels and all of them coming in as like, okay, the church done dropped the ball. Parents done dropped the ball. Let us come on in and Kobe this thing. So women are now being taught by these self-help gurus on these social media platforms. And it's like a ball of confusion. If it wasn't originally a ball of confusion that a cat got a hold to, like a yarn, a ball, like now it's worse, because where the church was supposed to be the spearhead of every single facet of the household, and then just be like a connector between the parental guidance, we've been left, the women have been left vulnerable to these gurus. And so yeah, it originally started with the church, and then the absence of parental guidance, and then now we have the, I don't want to say their names, but I kind of said a name, but yeah.
Nah, yo, we gonna play fair over here. But nah, you're spot on, man, and we can even see it in the comments as well. Tiffany says it was the church and the failure of my parents or family to discuss these issues. Yeah, yeah. So Tatiana, coming up to you, who do you believe have led the ladies astray with this way of thinking?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely like the church, because if we're to be trained up and shepherded properly, I think when the shepherd or leadership of the church have something set up where they look out for these things, like eventually the youth are going to become young adults and they're going to eventually go out into the world and engage with the opposite sex. They should like kind of foresee that's going to happen and then kind of come in with something other in addition to, the general Bible study classes and be like, look, we need to talk about some real life stuff, and how to do life basically, because sometimes they it goes over the youth head, or maybe they didn't get proper discipleship in the area of relationships. So in regards to this question, like thinking of that God will choose their husband, I think it's just not enough sound instruction provided by church leadership, not enough discipleship, not enough accountability. And it's like we as millennials, it seems like we're going to the technology world to get that advice, to get that and again, there's a lot of misinformation out there too, like our guest said tonight.
There definitely is. Yo, that's one of the reasons why you have to be able to discern what information, especially in the case of a believer, is in alignment with God's word. And you're already going to be at a disadvantage if you are not aware of what the word says. So, and I think that that is a reality for quite a few believers, is that they aren't that grounded in the scripture, the word to begin with. And then when they start navigating dating and relationships, they really only have what the world has told them to look for. And oftentimes that's not in alignment with what, the scriptures are saying. So really great points. Let's see. So got somebody new joining us. What's going on, Sammy? We appreciate you for joining us tonight. Sammy says, it's like there is a false sense of faith when sitting around waiting and a false sense of guilt when trying to make an effort. That right there is real talk. That is real talk, yo, because people, I've heard it, and this is where I would say, kind of sticking to this question, one of the things that just really made me shake my head is I think everybody on the panel tonight agreed that we shouldn't be advocating for women to be sitting at home waiting for a man to just come by and he's your husband. I've literally heard ministers, people of faith, telling women that that is okay. He's coming, sis. Keep praying. When I heard that, I was just like, how could you tell somebody that with a straight face? Because it goes to Sammy's point. That ain't faith. That is not faith. That is just a pipe dream. That to a certain extent, I think is lunacy. Because if you actually think that you can just sit at home, you're not observing with nobody, you're not social, that not just a man, right? But the right man, the one man that you've been waiting for, that's gonna check all of the boxes. He is going to find your address and you're gonna be like, that's him. Everything is gonna be perfect. That don't make no sense to me. It don't seem like it make no sense to y'all based on y'all reactions right now. But I think oh yeah, look, people are saying it right here. Speak on it. Like it's real, man. It's real. This right here, faith without works is dead. It's dead, yo. And like the faith, you gotta put some work. You gotta get out the house, socialize with people, like do something. So nah, man. But I've heard it, and to me, those are the things that really just I shake my head because I'm like, yo, man, you are leading the people astray. But did anybody want to comment on what I just said? I saw some of you guys look like you wanted to chime in. Yes,
I just
Tanzania.
wanted to talk. I just had to die laughing at the fact you say you gonna come up with a dress. You don't even know your dress size, sis. And then we've been stuck in quarantines and stuff, and you could have gained weight. Well, how he supposed to know?
Real.
Exactly. And again, it's like how many people have, I'm curious to know how many people have actually had that experience where they met someone right there, sight unseen, and God was like, that's your person. And then they were with it. They never questioned it. They never like got to know that person. They just went right along with it. Honestly, I feel like we have faith, but I think we're a little too skeptical in the society today to honestly just go with that.
God is not Amazon. Amazon
Okay.
Prime.
Not at all, man. Not at all, yo.
Y'all are absolutely hilarious.
I think
Right,
we're
yo,
trying to
like
bypass the process of dating because I think a lot of people are over the whole dating part and the ups and downs that come with it. I think that's why a lot of us say we just want that person to be right there at the door. I don't think we really want that, but we just over that whole what you doing, dry dates, ghosting, all these problems that come with everyday dating nowadays.
That's real. And going back to Amazon, right? Amazon ain't never dropped nothing at my door for free. I had to do something, place the order, and make an exchange of
Yes,
some currency in order
and
for
correct.
them to
receive
do
a
their
Say
part.
that.
and receive a confirmation of the tracking. Like,
That
come on
part.
now. Come on now.
Gotta
Your
get work
shipment
done.
is on the way. That's one of my favorite emails from
Oh,
them.
yeah.
Yo,
Hilarious.
that's real. That's real talk, man. That's real talk. Now, was there something you want to share, Jose, before I read some of the comments?
I was about to say, man. I mean, y'all could be like, folk could be like what the gamers who be on Xbox Live and looking at people's IP addresses to find out the exact address, and then we. I mean, some people are sick, so he gotta be real careful, because somebody might actually show up at your door like, "You look attractive. I saw your picture. We don't need those problems."
Yo, you definitely got to be careful out here. Definitely, man. But I think it just kind of, I think this Amazon, yo, it's a perfect example. I'm glad y'all brought it up because you got to recognize that it doesn't work that way. It definitely does not. So we had a number of comments that came in. So let me go back to the top. Okay, I'm gonna save that one. Did this one already. All right. So we had a comment from my man Black Belt. He says, men also need to get out here and make themselves a woman's best option. When a woman believes a quality man is accessible, if she puts in effort, actions will follow. I have seen it firsthand. Yeah, I agree. You know, that kind of goes back to his other comment where there has to be a balance. Both men and women have a role, have responsibility. And as we've been talking about, they got some work that they have to put in. So that's a really great point. So we had another comment that came in from Derek. He says, the leaders slash people in the church have to get back in tune with God. We got to inform, help, and cultivate the next generation of people. That is real talk right there. He had another comment that says, I heard a pastor say that to a young lady in church before. Wow, in church, that's crazy. He told her that God was sending her a husband and to just wait. I mean, we know, I think we all can say we know at least one person that has been told this or that believes this. And, you know, it's a sad reality, but unfortunately, it is a reality for some people. So let's see. We had Tiffany. She says the church needs to stop focusing on not fornicating and opening discussions about dating and relationships. Right. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about prior to the show, Tanzania, about having conversations about sex and all of these hot button topics that people are not touching on. Right. So he says now they leave singles isolated, right, and have only interest in the married couples. Right. I think every church has a marriage ministry, but very seldom do they have. And this is the key, a thriving, active singles ministry, right? You may have one, you know, just on paper, but like how many people are like literally going, they're engaged and meeting people? So yeah, man, great question. So F Doctor was saying, yes, it's important to do life together and to be transparent. Totally agree. My man Black Belt says, I don't know why people feel so stressed out about dating. Even the relationships that did not work, it was not unbelievably stressful and traumatic. What are people doing in their selection process? Yo, that's a great question, man. That's a great question. Yeah, something you want to chime in,
I
Tanzania?
was gonna say that there's beauty in just connecting with people and learning people, and then you iron sharpens iron. So even if the iron is dull, you're still sharpening your discernment. Like, okay, this person was a dud, or this person was good, but good, but not God. So there's beauty in the dating phase where you're talking to somebody, getting to know them, and if you get ghosted, then good. If you find yourself in a dead end date, and good, it's just like that's experiences that you need to have for your relational palette. So when you get out here and then you finally meet somebody, you'll know, and it's like, how do you know what you want if you've never encountered what you don't want? Because you afraid, so yeah, I say go out there, date, meet people, talk,
Right.
mingle.
That's important. And my girl Krista says, wait, why is it bad that a pastor said your husband is on the way? So what's bad about that is that the pastor is telling the woman just to wait. Like if he's telling her that's all you have to do is just sit back and wait and that man will eventually come along, I feel like that is not good advice. This is just me. All right. Let me be clear. This ain't the Bible. This is Jay. My personal opinion. I feel like it is irresponsible for a pastor or any leader to tell a woman that has a desire to get married to just sit around and wait. Like there's so much that you can be doing along that process other than just sitting around waiting. So if that is the only answer to her desire to get married, I feel like that is very irresponsible. But once again, that is my personal opinion. Some may not share it, but hey, that's my thoughts. Yeah, Tanzania.
And just think about in a practical sense. Okay, I live in Chicago. I live in the heart of Chicago. There's certain areas where you get on a bus. Somebody come up to you and tell you, go to 71st Street and wait for your bus. 71st and where? And then if you go to 71st, there's certain areas where the bus don't come. So this person just telling you to wait, you sitting there waiting for, and there's no traffic coming down this way. You just don't know, you're not preparing yourself, and then you could be waiting in a place that you're not supposed to be waiting because there ain't no traffic, there's nothing gonna show up. So all this time, and then all this time is going past you, and then you're not you don't know what you're waiting on, you don't know what it's gonna look like. So then what if somebody do pull up? What if somebody does show up? Is this person, just because my pastor told me to sit here and wait, my husband gonna come? It could be a pimp. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I was trying to go back to my analogy, but yeah, wait and do what? Wait where? Wait how? Wait for how long? So, and I think some pastors actually do that, like I said, because the demographic of the church is more primarily women, and women are more susceptible and easily to be deceived. That's his paycheck. That's his pocketbook. A woman is sitting here waiting, just waiting, and she constantly sewing into the idea that her husband is coming. That's a come up for the pastor. A waiting woman. It's a scripture that speaks on that, about women who let these type of spirits into their home, carrying them away because they are weighed down with all kind of lustful desires. So yeah, it can't just be sit here and wait for your husband. How? I need details.
Hey, I hear that. I definitely hear that. Yeah. So we had a few comments that came in, then we'll get back to discussing things here. So let's see. Okay. So Black Belt says it's also bad advice to tell women that to wait, just wait, because literally nothing good in life comes to you without any effort. It's a fantasy and it's unrealistic. I agree. Like that kind of goes back to the concept that we were talking about putting that work in. Then he also says, maybe since I'm not looking to get married, it's different for me, but I actually enjoy going on dates in the dating process. And you make a good point here. And I think Tiffany kind of honed in on it as well. Singles are too serious and desperately seeking someone instead of enjoying their period of singlehood, or to Black Belt's point, also to enjoy dating. Like if dating is something that is just like so serious, you remove the fun out of it, right? Like I get it, you don't want to choose the wrong person. But if you are putting so much pressure on yourself, I think that it's time to think about approaching dating from a different perspective. But that's just my take on it. But good question. And let's see, one more from Black Belt. He says, waiting at the bus stop can also be dangerous in Chicago. The problem with waiting, that's how you get ran over. You either want to be moving regardless. Y'all, I love y'all questions and analogies tonight, man. Y'all are on point, man. Y'all are on point. So let's see. Tiffany was saying Tanzania is so hilarious. She said definitely he could be a pimp. Yeah, she did say that. All right, let's see. Hold on. We had this one too. It says Tanzania, dating is good. You'll get a chance to learn that person's ways or personality. Now you can determine if that person is worth the time and investment. Yes, indeed. And then Krista says, I don't disagree with that. You guys are saying, I've just heard that anyone says don't do anything. I've just never heard any. Yeah, okay. Well, I've definitely heard people that have said don't do nothing. Because if you're telling somebody that they can stay at home and Mr. Right is just going to show up at the door, that is the equivalent of just sitting back and doing absolutely nothing. But great point. So F Doctor says, yes, date you. Enjoy spending time with you, because if you don't enjoy spending time with you, why should anyone else? And then this is the question that I want us to get into next. Coming over to my man, Jose. What can the church do to change this reliance on women thinking God is going to choose their spouse? Can you share any real life experiences, training, etc.? What's your take?
Honestly, I think The church needs to start backtracking on what it did, on how things began and how things are stagnant now. Church needs to be collectively more invested into its congregants, understand who's single, understand who's married, and formulate programs that openly talk about both sides. Um, get to a situation where you can speak to the singles will be on one side of the church, the married couples will be on one side of the church, and attack topics on either side and allow them to talk. If there isn't a consistent amount of educational opportunities for people to learn how to do this single life, or how to do the married life, it will literally become a circumstance where, once again, people end up doing what they've done in the past, not having proper knowledge or experience, or intuition, and then they just make a whole bunch of mistakes. The church has to be more invested. Our parents have to be better invested in the choices they make, the things that they say. I was actually requested to do the singles ministry at my church, but me and time just don't get along too well. So that's not as easy as I would have liked it to be. But if I can't get the time, I'll do it. But we need to get to a point where the church can say, listen, this is going to be a segment where the singles can come and talk about every problem that they need to talk about, how to divest their time and properly build themselves, while in the back of their subconscious just paying attention to what they would like, who they would expect, the type of chemistry and the type of practical dating scenario they would choose, and get these things in line and in order. Because someone said it before, you don't want to spend your entire, and I'm guilty, I'm not gonna lie, you don't want to spend your entire single life be like, oh my God, where's my wife, where's my husband? You don't want to do that. And a lot of times, like me myself, I'm a person, I always tell folk there's three types of people. There's the person who doesn't care for marriage and love. They're just not beat for it. There are the people who are on both sides. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm fine. Then there's my side. Well, I cannot wait until this person gets here, or to find this individual. And I'm like that times 700. It's bad, but that's another conversation. But I really believe that people need to understand the single fragment, excuse me, was meant for us to build, for us to evolve, for us to continue to learn and grow. Because as you mentioned earlier, actually, Emmanuel, and you, Tanzania, at one point, you don't want a person to find you and you're ill prepared. You don't want to end up in a position where you're like, okay, I'm financially stable, but are you trustworthy? Are you reliable? Are you honest? Are you communicative? Can you listen? Are you restorative? Can you heal her? There's a bunch of fragments that people don't get to fix, because a lot of times, me personally, I can see it. A lot of folk, oh, I'm an adult, I can do what I want to do. And I tell people, words are so powerful. And as writers, you all know, if you're not cautious with your words, it's dangerous, because you get to this plateau in your subconscious where you feel, I'm grown, I can do as I wish. However, that is a very problematic statement to make, because that means you cannot grow and evolve. And then when a person comes to you, you go, oh, listen, I'm fine. I'm an adult. I got money. I got this in the bank. And then she goes through something emotionally, and you're sitting there like cold. She needs you to heal her, hug her, talk to her, something. And you're just sitting there like a blank ox. You can't do that. Doesn't make any sense. So 9 times out of 10, I think people really have this. They need to get a space in the church where they say, listen, these are the character traits you need. If you really want to be a husband, you really want to be a wife, it's not just, a lot of people can cook and clean. Unfortunately, too many can't. But there's a lot of people who can cook and clean and get all the basics in the house done. Great. That's nice. That's decent. Now let's go in the internals. This is what I've been working on since I was a kid. How do you relate to the person that you claim you want as a wife or a partner? Can you get this done efficiently? Because otherwise, it's a waste of your time.
So many gems. As you saw, the comments was coming in. It was definitely digging what you were saying. I'm curious, Tatiana, anything that you want to share with regards to this question?
Yeah, sure. I wrote a couple notes. Let me bring them over. I like niches, whatever you want to call it. Um, I started the singles ministry in churches before, and I feel like they have a tendency to lump all singles together when not everybody has the same reason why they're single. There's some people who are single because they want to be and they don't have a desire to get married. There's some people who have a desire to get married. There's some people who are single because they're widows. There's some people who are single because they're divorced. I think the church should have more specific groups to meet those types of singles, because one person is not going to be on the same level as this person, and that's okay. So let's speak to those people, so we won't be bored in these meetings like we're talking about something that has nothing to do with what I'm trying to learn. We have to meet the congregation where they're at and give them what they need so they can keep coming back. That's what it is. And I would also say, I'm not sure if marriage ministries do this, but if there are marriage ministries in the church, they should have those who are more seasoned, those who are open and willing to the married couples to adopt singles who actually want to be married. In my book, Journey to 30, I interviewed one woman, and she learned about marriage by basically being mentored by a married couple. And they weren't in the same church, but she basically like followed them and did life with them. And she learned more about marriage in that time, in that season that she was with them, than she did when she was in the church. So I think it was helpful if marriages, like marriage ministries or married folks who want to serve in that way, would adopt singles and give them the real, like, this is what is required of you, especially when it comes to even more niche marriages like blended families. These families that come from different cultures, it could be a number of things, but I think we could do better in those areas by meeting people where they need specifically.
I really like the idea that you just shared about married couples adopting singles. I've never even thought of anything like that, but I think it could be extremely valuable, especially if you have the right married couple, right? I think that kind of goes back to what you talked about before. We got to vet them too, so that you are getting the right model and example when it comes to, what you should be pursuing. But nah, that's a really, really great suggestion, Tatiana. Tanzania, what's your take? Anything you want to add to this question?
Yeah, I'm piggybacking off of both Tati and Jose. When Jose spoke about how the church leadership needs to be more invested in their flock, and that goes back to being just going back to the basics of discipleship. Um, and so it's two D's, it's discipleship and deconstruction. So when it comes to discipleship, if you can go back to the basis of just discipling your flock, I believe that the basic characteristics of a Christian will make you suitable for a mate, because then your fruits are being you're being imparted into where your fruits can grow, your fruits are flourishing, and the vines can be pruned. So it doesn't even have to be single specific, it just could be believer specific. Once discipleship is laid, the foundation is laid bare, everything else can be built up into a nice beautiful bride. So but then when it comes to the second D is the deconstruction, the church gotta release the pride and just be willing to accept that it's some things that just needs to be deconstructed as it pertains to singlehood, romantic relationships or whatnot, and be able to recognize and accept, okay, there are decades and decades upon decades of wrong teaching that the average believer has received. Let's go and peel back these layers. Let's go and tear this stuff down. Let's demolish this stuff. Let's check for termites. Let's check for rodents. Let's check for the scaffolding. Let's check for all of this and see if this needs to be a fixer-upper, or we just gonna tear everything down and build from the ground up when it comes to these teachings. And I believe that is so much untapped areas of teaching, as opposed to just constantly hearing the same things over. Do you want to be a Christian entrepreneur, or all these other, you want to be a Christian to the marketplace, and all these other whoop wop bands. There's so much that can be taught. Like I feel like leaders are getting bored and just recycling trendy topics, but this stuff that can be taught by just deconstructing what has already been taught. So discipleship and deconstruction is what the church, I feel like the church can go on ahead and just take that on up. It's a messy, and because it takes a lot to disciple a soul. It takes a lot. And just like Tati said, I think that's beautiful. Married couples adopting the singles. How beautiful is that? That's discipleship. That's discipleship.
It
Now
is.
you gotta look, and you also once again gotta vet, because you gotta make sure they ain't looking for a swinger situation, you know. But at the same time, at the same time, discipleship, it boils down to discipleship and just deconstructing the faith within the community of faith. So yeah, and
Yeah.
I want to say something to Crystal Ray. I don't want you to think that I was attacking you or anything. I get passionate, and then my the baritone in my voice, my octave get lower when I get passionate or whatever. So yeah, I wasn't getting jumping on you with your question.
Oh, no, no, you good. You good. Like that was a really great question. Definitely appreciate, F Doctor for sharing that with us. And I want to come to my man Jose with the next question. Let's get to the heart of tonight's topic. Why does God not tell women who to marry?
Oof. This question is big for me, right? Because there's this wonderful thing that we as Christians have called freedom of choice. I had this one guy tell me something in my church, and he's a married man. He's one of the married couples, pieces of married couples that I was constantly on. I look at him like a mentor and older brother. But he told me, Jose, he said, God is here to guide us, and then he gives us these tests. And what's happening basically in the earth is he's just watching how we take the test and how we pass the questions. And if we look, this is one of the tests where we can ask for help, but he's not going to give us the answers. So why would God tell a woman this is your husband when he wants to see how your discernment works? What if he wants to see if you understand character, if you know how to pick traits based upon compatibility, if you know if you're going to go for what makes you happy or what looks good on the outside and in the streets. So I don't think that on that basis alone, I don't think God's just going to be like, okay, listen, this man is your husband without a shadow of a doubt. Now, if he does that to certain women, that's fine. But as a collective, I just don't think God is that dictator kind, because women need to be able to make their choices by freedom based upon what they know and love. And God's not a dictator. So, yeah, that's what I believe. That's my
All
stance.
right. Okay. So before I come to our next panelist, let me read some of these comments in the chat. So Derek says the church got to step up and teach the body of believers the right way, correctly, according to the word of God. Stop preaching just on prosperity and you becoming a millionaire. Teach the people God's word is what I'm assuming that's what that says, but definitely let me know if I'm wrong. Derek was saying great points made by Tanzania. Tiffany is saying great points from Jose. And F Doctor is saying, y'all spitting truth. Is this the one time where I can say it is time for the church to keep it real regarding this topic? No longer can the church allow culture to pollute and twist the truth, and the truth will set you or us free. Nah, man, so many great comments tonight. I really appreciate you guys in the chat, man. Y'all lighting it up. Tatiana, coming up to you. Why does God not tell women who to marry?
I totally agree with what Jose said because the choice is ultimately up to us. I learned that recently in a class I was taking called Sacred Search, and it's led by Pastor Gary Thomas, and it's taught by him breaking down about going through the process of getting to know someone for marriage and how we can't put that onus on God, that responsibility on him, because he again gave us the freedom of choice. And I thought about this before getting ready for the show tonight, was like, if God gives us free will to choose him, to love him, to serve him as our God, why would he make us choose anyone to marry? That doesn't even make sense. So that's one aspect of it. And it's like, what if you're in a situation where you are hearing that God told you someone specifically is your husband or your spouse, and that person, with their freedom of choice that they choose to exercise, does not marry you? What are you going to do? You just out here unmarried? You just out here like widowed basically in the spirit because that person didn't decide to marry you? I don't think God set us up to be like that. So I think we need to like really, like Tansy said, deconstruct this idea that he's going to send us a spouse a specific spouse, when we also had to get rid of the idea or notion of the soulmate thing, which is not based on biblical concept. Is in the Sacred Search class, they told us the truth that is based off of philosophy, off of Plato, not Christianese, not nothing related to the Bible. It was culture that influenced and got in the church somehow and became this ungodly lesson that was taught generation to generation, got people confused. So again, it's like it's up to us, you guys. We have to take responsibility for that. And it speaks to, again, that fear of making the wrong choice, and also not being discipled enough to the point where we feel confident to make the right choices. So there's a need that the church needs to fill if they want to see more successful marriages, because we can build up all the millionaires, the Christian millionaires we want to, but if you marry the wrong person, you can lose all those millions. If you marry the wrong person, you can get distracted and end up not pursuing your purpose in God. So why are we not talking about the more fundamental things that God was always invested in? God is always invested in marriage. He's always invested in relationship. And I feel like we in the church perhaps got distracted by that prosperity era for a long time. And we're starting to see the repercussions of that.
Most definitely. Yo, so before I come over to you, Tanzania, I'm coming. We had a few comments that came through. So Tiffany was saying the church is now running like a business and singles may not be considered a profitable investment. Oh, like, yo, that right there is heat.
That
That
doesn't.
right there is heat. Like, that is so 100. Like, yo, bruh, Tiffany, you do not understand the amount of heat you just dropped right there with that comment. Yo, and take the question mark off of that. That needs to be an exclamation point at the end of that joint for real.
It's
Because that
crazy.
is real talk. Everybody knows so many churches are run like businesses. And yo, if something ain't profitable, man, you are not going to invest in it
I
no
didn't holler.
longer.
I
Yo,
didn't
go
Jay,
holler
ahead.
so loud. A high pitch holler.
but
That
No,
makes the
Jay,
most sense.
And that's it. That is it. Oh my God.
yo,
yo,
Jay,
you the MVP for tonight for that one,
Yo, for
Tiffany.
real. That was
MVP
give
of the
Tiffany
night.
flowers. Tiffany, oh my gosh. Yeah, Jay, you're the finance guy, right? So like don't like married people like supposed to be making more money because they have a dual income? Wouldn't it benefit the church then to invest in singles though? So
You
get
would think.
married to make
You
better
would think.
marriage choices?
Here's the thing though about investments, right? Most
Mhm.
people want the quick win. Most people don't want to invest for the long haul. So that's the thing that you got to recognize too, is most people prefer to gamble. Like they want the quick win. They don't care how much they lose over time, paying the lottery, going to the casino, hitting the slots. It's that same approach where people are looking for that quick windfall as opposed to doing the slow, steady, sure thing that over the long haul is going to produce the greatest benefit. That's
Wow.
what it boils down to right there
Thank
from a
you.
financial perspective.
Thank you for that.
No problem. So my girl Ebony is in the building. What is going on, Ebony? So glad you could join us tonight. And then F Doctor says, just know the free will may come with rewards or consequences. So important to get understanding. It definitely is. Hey, yo, the chat is lighting up. Hold on, let me. Oh man, yo, y'all dropping heat over here. Okay, hold on. Let me go through some of these. Okay, so Krista said she had a taboo question, and this is her taboo question. She says, so Megan Good said God told her Devon was her husband, and now they're getting divorced. Do you guys believe that she heard him correctly? So let's go real quick, right? Let's just say yes or no. Just we're gonna keep it short and sweet, and then I'm gonna save this question for later because I think this would be a fun way to end it out. But for Chris's purpose, really quickly, if you had to give a quick yes or quick no, what's your take? Coming to you first, Tanzania.
No.
You said no? Okay. All right, Jose. No? Okay. And Tatiana.
No, she didn't hear him correctly.
Yeah. Everybody says no on that one. So I'm gonna start this question and come back to it, Krista. We can dive into it a little bit deeper. So let's see. Where are we? So yeah, Tiffany was coming with the heat for sure. All right, Derek had a comment. God didn't tell Adam to marry Eve. He said it's not good for man to be alone. God created Adam to help me to carry out his plan on earth. Yeah, that's real. That's real. Let's see. All right, so we got some other ones. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay. I'm not gonna read the other ones. Y'all conversing amongst yourselves, but nah, man, that's really really good. So, Tanzania, what's your take? Why does God not tell women who to marry?
I'm glad that guy mentioned about Adam and Eve because that was where I'm getting my answer from. um, he doesn't tell women specifically who their spouses are because he gave us um, a unique response or a unique position. He doesn't have to tell us because he made us to be the confirmation. So, where he said that it is not good for man to be alone, he presented Adam with a helpmeet that was suitable for him, and then Adam named her. Adam named her, and then she actually was God's confirmation for Adam. So we don't need, God doesn't have to tell us to be anything because we are our unique makeup. We're actually to carry out confirmations. So God gave Adam a directive in the beginning. He gave him commands, and he made us to be confirmations. And that's why he said that he needed a help me that was suitable for him. He needed a confirmation. He needed a confirmation of God's word. So we God doesn't have to tell us God doesn't have to tell us who our mates are because we all have our own divine positioning. And like Tati said, if he gives us free will to make all these other choices, why not give us free will to make this choice? So in my experience, when I thought that I heard God tell me 5 times that this person was my mate, it was all because just based off loneliness and flesh, and a hungerous desire, feverish desire to be connected to somebody. It was never him. It was never him because God gave us the permission to carry out our free will. So yeah.
All right, yo, so many gems, yo. So let me get through some of these comments. We had some more that came through, so give me a second. I think we did this one. I gotta keep that one. That one was so heat. Okay. I'm gonna save this one. Okay, so Shayla was saying, I think Megan. Oh no, I'm gonna save this one, but I'm gonna read it now. But we're gonna talk about that later. She was saying she think Megan Good did hear from God because they did get married. But if you don't take care of a blessing God gives you, you can still lose it. Great point. And Dojo, I think I found the comment you were talking about finances to what Tatiana was asking. He says, here's the thing about that financial question. Who gives more money to the church, married couples or single women? I would say single women, men trying to provide for their houses, not another's. And that's a good point. And that kind of speaks to the fact that they're not being appreciated, your biggest consumer. And think about it. Now, this kind of ties into the whole aspect of like, just to put it out there, black people, right? We are some of the mass consumers across the board. But the people whose products we're buying oftentimes do not really respect us. Their products sometimes are not even made for us, but we're giving them the money. And I think that that's very similar, where it's the church is willing to accept the money, just like some of these brands are willing to accept black people's money, and they don't care. They're not going to change their mission. They're not going to change it up, switch it up to appease that audience that's buying. But they're like, hey, if you want to buy our stuff, by all means. And I think the church kind of takes a similar approach where it's like, yo, we're not putting no focus in you. We're not going to invest in you. But if you want to keep dropping that dollar and giving it to us, we're not going to say no. And that's kind of the way I look at it. Jose, something you wanted to share?
Point. These comments are crazy good, man. These comments are crazy insane. I find it interesting when a lot of people don't take the time to pay attention. I was thinking on the single women and the married aspect because I historically, since I was like at least 24, unfortunately, I've had a guy who I call my former father-in-law. He wasn't actually my father-in-law, but I was dating his daughter. That didn't work out. But he would all to this day, that man treats me like he's my dad, but he'll be like, "Yo, you got to get married. You have to get married and have kids." And I'm like, "Not yet." Like I'm not picking somebody off the street to bring them to the church. Like, and but it's also noted historically. I've taken some classes on this thing that I'm in called the Pathfinder Club, but it's like a biblical Boy Scout ish, military ish kind of a program, but it's based in the Seventh Day Adventism, and they basically deal with history of the church, and the church has quotas. The church, like other companies, they have quotas, they have numbers they need to maintain, they have memberships that they want to. And so a lot of times, the more the married couple gets into the church and has children, that's a win for them. So that's just one of those things that I never really forgot. And then typically, as it was spoken already, that's true that married men don't tend to give as much. Single women tend to give more, but the numbers in regards to the membership, that has a lot to do with the push for marriage in many different churches. So that was a big key for me. And it's unfortunate because we look at people as opportunities for growth of the church, or opportunities for dollar signs, but it goes back to what was stated earlier. There's not enough investment in the person themselves. It's about this particular agenda.
No, that's a good point. And I want to be clear to everybody viewing is that remember this financial thing that we're talking about, church being a business, it's analogy. Like we're not speaking like this is reality. We're saying this is an analogy that we're using, right? So I think it's important to keep that in mind. We're addressing this from an analogy perspective. And that kind of goes with the question that F Doctor was asking. So, in order to see change, do you got to hit them in the pockets? No, that's not what we're saying. Or I should say, that's not what I'm saying. I think that a person giving to the church, if this is in this case single women, like we were just talking, I don't think single women are making donations and paying tithes in order to get a husband. If they are, that's something that we need to have a whole nother conversation about. I feel like people are truly giving out of their hearts. Just using the analogy that we were talking about, if you look at the church as a business from a financial perspective, if you are getting a lot of income coming in from this one particular consumer, you would think that you would turn your attention to that consumer and provide them with some of the benefits and things that they desire. That's if you look at it as a business. We understand in reality that church is a ministry and it doesn't always operate like a business as much as some churches may mirror it. But I just want to say that I'm not telling nobody to stop tithing or giving to your church. I think that should be something between you and God. And where you choose to tithe or give is totally a decision, once again, that a person has to make for themselves. But great comments. I see them coming in. I'm going to try my best to get through some of these, and then we're going to get back in line with what we're talking about. So we had another one came in from F Doctor says, yes, what good is knowledge if it's not applied? That is so true. You have to apply it. Let's see what other one. Okay, so Ebony says one could say God did not say for how long he was to be her husband. Okay, I think that goes back to the making good thing. That's true. That's true. That's true. Let's see. So okay, I'm gonna save all of these making good comments. Derek says God didn't tell Eve that Adam was her husband. He created her from Adam because she had purpose in the garden, and they were there. Hold on. And they were to have a relationship with him. God could have restored the purpose. Yeah, that's real. That's real. That's a good point. All right. So okay. I think I'm gonna pass on some of those other comments. Oh, hold on. Let me put this one up. Jose, F Doctor wanted to let you know that you were making a great point, and so did Derek. Say you are right in what you were saying. All right, so let's get to the next question that I wanted to look at, which is this right here. Tanzania, do you believe that, or no, what role do you believe God plays, if any, in a person choosing their spouse?
I believe that he's the foundation. He should be the foundation and he should be the guide and the foundation. So, um, where in the beginning he gave directives to Adam, that's where he comes in and give a directive in the relationship. Where he connected um Adam with his purpose and connected Eve to her purpose, that's where he should be given all jurisdiction and authority. Also, he should be the final confirmation for relationships, not the sole not the sole benefactor of the relationship. He should be the one that we should go to for final confirmation. Where the man, if the man is supposed to be the one that proposes to the woman, and that's what I meant to say earlier. The man was given the authority to propose. The woman is given the position to reject or accept, to reject or approve. And then God is the one that gives the final say so. But that is almost in every that not almost, that is in everything. God is given the final say so. He's the Alpha and the Omega. So he should be all up and through the approval process, but it should not negate responsibility and personal accountability, personal discernment, personal wisdom, and personal journeying with an individual. So that's where I put it. Should be
Okay,
wrapped up
okay.
all up in there.
Not like I
It's like
said, y'all been dropping.
a train of command, but at
Mhm.
every step there's God.
I like that. I like that. Yo, the chat is on fire. Really quickly, shout out to my girl Tanisha. Appreciate you so much for joining us tonight. She says, "Good point, Derek. God did not tell Eve Adam was her husband." That's real talk. So, Jose, coming over to you, man. What role, if any, does God play in a woman choosing her spouse?
It's interesting because people tend to forget that the Bible has very, very keen scriptures, many of them, including the he who findeth the wife part. Um, but, not to milk that one alone. There are other circumstances like the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, long suffering. These are all written. Going into another one that tends to be talked about a lot, woman, wives submit to your husbands, etc., etc. But people tend to forget underneath that it says husbands submit to your wives in love, and so God gives instructions. He's already there. If you're doing it in regards to spiritual direction, he's already up and through the Bible and has given proper instruction in order for us to follow suit. Now we tend to take another step and say, God, I need you to be like dictator and control it. But if God controls it, then your free will is gone, and you can't grow without that free will opportunity. So I do believe God does have that, but we have to be cautious because a lot of people want God to magically turn their lives upside down and just sit down and do nothing. And we can't be, we can't expect a realistic idea for God to come down from heaven, from his very throne, and start pushing us with his finger into every direction that we need to go to. What would our lives and purpose be? Because if that was the case, he's a dictator. Satan wouldn't have been cast out of heaven. All these things that have happened would not have happened if he was the dictator that most people want him to be. And we're not robots. So, we have to understand that God does play a role. Very much, but it's not necessarily a role where he's going to puppeteer us and allow us to do as he sees fit. But we have the opportunity because of the guidance that Christ put on this earth and the regulations that's been placed. So if we follow the rules, and they're not necessarily just rules for control either. A lot of people, you made a very, very good point earlier, Tanzania, in the fact that God allows us to take these situations and to embrace them and to guide us in the direction that he needs us to go, but just based on the blueprint and based on the breakdown. We crumble everything, we build it back up, and then we make the choices that we have to make. But after the breakdown of our character, of our former flesh, once we grow in Christ, everything becomes easy if we're following the pathway as it was distributed to us. But we have to remove self first. So there's so many layers that we have to go through, but God has already given us the line. One thing I always tell folk, the 10 Commandments is a perfect example. The first 4 commandments talk about how we are to relate to God, and then the last 6 talk about how we are to relate to man. If we follow that, our character typically should be in line with Christ's journey. Once that's already done, now we have the basis of what we need. Now we go to the fruits of the Spirit. What is it that Jesus did while he was on this earth so that we can trek the journey in the same way he did, because his character was flawless. By the time, if we're men, I'll speak from the men's side, if we're doing this accurately, when the woman then meets us in proper timing, our character should be at a point where she can rely on this man because he's dependable, he's honest, he's not lying, he's doing the things that Christ did. So now I don't have to worry about that. Now, if everything else is in place with the finances, it's good to go. God's already done the work, but we're looking for this extra thing that we don't need.
Oh man, y'all just keep it rolling. So we did have one comment that came in from Shayla. She says, "Do y'all think perhaps Eve knew what she was there for? She was created while he was sleeping. Perhaps that's why the word says, 'Don't awaken love before it's time.' She probably discerned her mate." I think that's a really good question. I'll be honest, just to be objective, I don't think that we can say that just from reading the text, but I definitely think that it's open to a person's interpretation to draw that conclusion. But that's just my take. The panel, if you guys want to chime in and share your thoughts about all me. Anybody? No? Okay. All right. So with that being said, let's go to my girl Tanzania. No, Tatiana, you're next up. What role do you believe God plays in choosing our spouse, if any?
I think that God's main role for singles who desire to marry is to honestly just like foster us as individuals to become more like Christ. Ultimately, that's what all believers are set to do. Whether you marry or not, that's on you again, because it's He gives us the freedom of choice. And as a father, in a father relationship that we have with God, we call him Abba. We have the spirit of adoption. We understand that those who are saved through Christ Jesus, that we are now family with God because of Jesus. We can go to him in relationship and commune with him. I think getting to know God more, that's highest on his priority list. And like they say all the time about seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all things will be added unto you. Matthew 6:33 um, is often told that to singles as well who desire marriage. And it's the truth. A foundation, your relationship with the Lord is your foundation for everything. If you want to be married one day, maybe that's God's plan for you. If he gave you the desire, if you have a desire for marriage, more than likely God gave that to you. Or it could be society too. I'm not going to put that. But for the most part, I believe like believers who like are following God, like ultimately, and they have a desire for marriage, that's because God gave them that desire. But you want to just focus on, you want to make sure that your relationship with God is in order. It's not going to be a perfect relationship, meaning you don't want to work for a spouse. You don't want to wait till everything is perfect in your life as an individual in your single season as a believer, because you're not going to be perfect until the day of Jesus when you're face to face with him. So we have to think about the sober reality of what that is. So it's like ultimately just think about like you as an individual and your connection with God. And that can very well be a reflection in how you treat other people. If you have a disconnect with God, you're going to feel it. And that's going to reflect in your relationship with people. If you have a hard time being obedient to God, you're going to have a hard time trusting and being obedient to your partner. Who wants that? That's another topic for another day. But it's like we just have to get to that foundation first, because he's so invested in who we are as individuals, because we have individual purposes and we're not going to be married in heaven anyway, according to the Bible. So guess what? In order for us to replenish the earth, there has to be marriages. There has to be people having kids in marriage. So he had a plan. We just got to mess it up because sin is a thing out here. So I'm just saying, ultimately, he wants us to be our very best, but we're not always going to get it 100% right. We may feel like we're never ready, but maybe God sees that because he knows more than we do. He sees our future. So we have to trust him, but we also have to do our part to keep that relationship growing with him.
Okay, okay. Yo, want to give a shout out really quickly to Mr. Invisible. We appreciate you for joining us. Says this is such a great topic. Thanks to the entire crew tonight. Yeah, man, you guys have been on fire and I definitely appreciate it. So the last question I have for us tonight is this one right here, coming down to my man Jose. I want to know, what do you think are the benefits of choosing our own spouse and not relying on God to do it?
That's a crazy question, right? Because my brain goes, hold up, what do we want God to? But I get it. Um, there are benefits to it. Let me be clear. There are benefits to people with reasonable minds to do this because everybody could choose a spouse without God, and then you get the madness that we get today. But the opportunity to Kristen said that that's a wild question. Um, but you get to think about one, what you like in the physical, in the uh, intellectual, in the compatibility factor. If there's a fun factor, you get to peer through all of the qualifications of a man or a woman, the things that excite you, the things that intrigue. I know for once upon a time, I used to always have this thing and say, um, I like the fact that women essentially may look at a guy for like 10.5 seconds and the physical is what catches their eye. But as they draw closer to the guy, she's paying attention to everything else. What's his character like? How is he going to speak to me? Men don't do this. We don't, and it's unfortunate because all we see is flesh, and then everything just gets barred and tossed by the wayside, and we have the calamity that most of the world puts out. But the good thing about the woman's perspective on that is they get to break down essentially what they need before they start to take further steps. I think everybody as a collective needs to understand how to do this because a lot of folk rely so much on the physical part, which complements chemistry. But behind the chemistry, behind the infatuation and attraction, once that's done away with, then there's what we have to consider: if this person looks at me as an investment worth taking, as someone who sees me as his rib, on a woman's perspective, as someone who's going to desire my well-being at the utmost. There are so many things to consider. And so I like the opportunity to do that. I think to me, I'm a connecting type of a person. I am a social butterfly. Connection is my biggest thing. I love love more than way too many people think. Um, so it's like I usually try to get into the small details that most people miss because it's that investment, it's that psychological investment into a person that fascinates me. And that's the good part about being able to make your own decision is you get to learn a person if you're actually and properly invested in a being. Now, without God, if your mind is tainted, if your mind is not in a proper format, and you're just doing this for selfish desires, that's for flesh, that's for social class and power. All these other things can very much detour what the proper marital factor would look like, and then cause a whole bunch of issues. And so, therefore, a lot of folk tend to marry for power. I've had a girl tell me on Instagram once before. She said that marrying for love sounds nice in theory once upon a time, but now everybody's like, listen, we got stuff to get done. We got businesses to run. People want to make sure they can live rent free in their homes or at least have someone alleviate the pain. So we need to make smarter decisions, and marriage can't just be for love. Eh, and it sounds nice in theory, but now God's purpose for marriage is being tainted because of humanistic values, and that's not okay. That's my take.
Definitely appreciate you for sharing your take with us, Jose. Really quickly, we did have some comments that came in from Mr. Invisible. He was saying Eve was the resource, i.e., the supply that came from the man that he had to help reach its full potential. The reason why Eve was named by Adam is because his gift was to give meaning to things. He also went on to say Eve received meaning from Adam when he named her. Adam's job was to identify his wife. God presented the option. He could have said no, but before sin came into play, God's will was man's will. So there we go. I think we had okay, yeah. So we got people saying that's what's up. Tiffany is saying that question is very deep, Jay. I think um I think hold on. I'm not understanding that one a little bit. I think we can select our mate maybe, but we need to examine their character to determine if they are the best choice. I totally agree. Most definitely. Most definitely. So Danielle is joining us. What's going on, Danielle? She says, "Hey everybody, just tuning in. Appreciate you for joining us." And then Black Belt, he had a question or he had a comment in relation to, I think, what Jose was just saying. He was saying, I don't know about that one, brother. I think guys who only look at physical are usually the lowest tier of males. Men understand a woman is a life or death investment and choose discriminately. So, yeah, that's a good point. F Doctor says, I don't want struggle love or a love less marriage. Yeah, that's real. Definitely don't want that. So, Tanzania, coming over to you, what would you say are the benefits of you as an individual choosing your spouse as opposed to relying on God to do it for you?
I truly believe that the benefit would be the journey in itself of learning somebody, the journey and reading their book. Then you can decide if you can be a character in their book and they could be a character in yours. Like, just because a person believes in God, that don't mean that you're compatible or suitable to be connected to each other. So the idea of God just picking somebody for you, you're hijacking the beauty of the journey of a relationship makes the nucleus of a marriage. So how you started, how you journey it, what you going through, you got to go through some wars. I got to see your war wounds. I got to see what your heart look like. I got to see what your mind look like. I can't see that if I'm just going off of this idea that this person is my husband. I want to war with you. I want to go through the trenches with you. I want to see what you like when you're hungry. See what you like when you're tired. See what you like when you're angry. See what you like when you win. Because sometimes people, when they lose, they're probably nice to be around, but when they win, they're probably jerks. So and there's beauty in getting to know somebody, but also allowing God to come in to, like, just like, you're doing the most, you're doing the most, hey, get over here, or this is what y'all need to be talking about. Let me segue in this. But just going off of the unction that this person is your husband or this person is your wife, you kind of like pervert the whole process of even getting to know that person. So the benefit of just actually doing it no, I won't say doing it yourself, but doing it in God, with yourself, doing it in God, by yourself in God. It sounds confusing, but you get to experience the most of that person. It's almost like, what's the point of going to I know some people that go to amusement parks and they don't get on rides, but then can you really say you had an experience? I know some people who came to Chicago and they said they did this, they did that, but did you go here? Did you go there? Did you experience this? Did you go to Wabash? Did you do any of that? You didn't have the experience. So it's like, I think that's what God actually really wants us to enjoy, the fellowship of each other. And that's why he doesn't dictate or um force us to pick somebody or pick somebody for us, because there's beauty in the fellowship. There's deliverance in fellowship. There's the possibility of agape love being birthed in fellowship. So it seems like the way we saying it, it might seem like God is just put on a back burner, but God is all up and through it. When you do it his way, he's all up and through it. And I saw something that somebody posted. I think it was a story. Somebody said, if God don't want you to be with somebody, he's not gonna give you no peace about it. So one of probably the telltale signs is that God has put a stamp of approval on is that you have peace. You have peace about it. This person is not causing you to compromise. This person is not pulling you away from what God has ordained for you, or for what God has in place for you in a season. They complement it. So there's a lot that goes into even getting to matrimony or getting to the podium to say I do. There's some warring that has to go. There's some crying, some trauma that needs to be unveiled. Our inner childs need to be exposed and commune with each other. There's so much that can happen between, hey, I like you, let's get married. There's so much can happen in that. And I think that's the true benefit.
Oh man, yo, you was teaching. You saw the comments I was putting up with the people dropping, the emojis and telling you to teach on. Yes, indeed. So Danielle was saying taking the time to develop relationships and truly getting to know each other isn't emphasized anymore. So many couples I know are together without liking each other as people, and that is definitely the way that it should not be, right? Yeah, so really good points. So many comments coming in. I really love the fact that you had hit on peace, because I definitely think that that is a huge proponent of being able to identify, when we're operating or moving in God's will or not. And then Shayla says that is so true. A lack of peace is a huge indicator. Yeah, case in point. And Derek says this is a great dialogue and such a great panel of people tonight. Yes, indeed, man. I know I've enjoyed it for sure. So coming up to you, Tatiana, what's your take? What are the benefits of you choosing your own spouse and not relying on God to do it for you?
Everyone has such great stuff to say. That was so awesome. I'll make mine short. I remember in the class that I was talking about earlier, Pastor Gary Thomas was saying a good marital choice is a gift that keeps on giving. So ultimately, the benefit of you choosing your own spouse, you get what you choose. Do you know like what you're going to get when you pick that person? Did you take the time to get to know them? Did you really like look at the terms and conditions? Because to some people, like they believe that marriage can be seen like a contract. And what's in a contract? Terms and conditions. There are things that need to be looked at and reviewed, and maybe it needs more than one person to help you make that decision. That's okay. I'm a proponent of premarital counseling. Every time I see a couple get engaged, I be like, oh, I hope they get premarital counseling. Even if you feel like this is your person and you choose them and the doves came down from heaven and the sun shining on them, get premarital counseling, because what we also need to remember that even if you do decide to marry this person or you choose this person, the devil doesn't like marriage, period. So guess what he about to do? Come for yours. He gonna come for you in your single season if you desire marriage, and if you don't, you're gonna come for marriage regardless of the choice, or you thought that God told you, or et cetera, whatever the situation is. The enemy does not like marriage because of the benefits that come from marriage. Marriage has a purpose, and so you have to make sure that the purpose that you're going for, your life goals, et cetera, kind of line up with the person that you choose. I think that should help people make the right decisions in who they marry. So I would think about those benefits too.
Oh man, yo, so good, so good. So Tiffany says we use our free will to align with the best partner for our purpose in life. Yeah, that's key. That's key. So before we jet tonight, y'all want to talk about the making good thing, or yeah, y'all game? Okay, everybody here game. So this will be our last question for tonight. And it's funny because I actually had this question lined up. So let me go ahead and drop that down there, which is, do you think it's really God when people say God told them who to marry? So I think that that really kind of ties into the heart of what Krista had posed when she was asking us. Megan Good said that God told her Devon was her husband and now they're getting divorced. Do you guys believe that she heard him incorrectly? So I think everybody on the panel has said no, pretty much. And we did have some comments that people were asking about. So let me go through and share those, and then we'll each kind of dive in and give our perspectives on it. So Shayla says, I think Megan did hear from God because they did get married. But if you don't take care of a blessing God gives you, you can still lose it. Ebony says, one could say that God did not say for how long he was to be her husband. That's a good point. And then F Doctor says, so is the panel saying that he was the counterfeit? So many interesting questions. So I'm open up. Who want to go first? Who wants to dive into this one first? Tanzania?
So the only reason I said no is not because they got a divorce.
Mhm.
So we can because people are still married today, and it ain't got nothing to do with God. They married because they on survival. This person is their paycheck. This person is the emotional support animal, or whatnot. So just because they got a divorce, I don't think is the reason why God. I don't believe Megan heard from God. She heard. She didn't hear from God. And I'm going to use my experience. The 5 times I thought God told me who my husband was. And it was based off of avoiding myself. I saw they were mostly all of the guys that I thought were my husband, they were operating in purpose. They were operating heavily in their purpose, and I didn't know what my purpose was. So I'm basing it off of scripture, mistaught scripture. Um, and I'm thinking like, oh, I can be a helper suitable for this person. This person's gonna help me find my purpose. this is who God, this gotta be God. This gotta be what God's telling me. This is my husband. Every single time no, no. And also I watched something from a guy a couple of years ago. I forget his name, something Solomon, Joseph Solomon, I believe. He said, think about every time you believe you hear from God and this person is your spouse or whatnot. Think about what attributes have popped out to you to make you believe that this person is your spouse. Then magnify it and think that there are other people out there who believe probably the same thing about this person. What is it about you that he picked you for this person out of all these people who see the same thing? So it's like all these people seeing the same thing, that this person is their spouse. So you are the only one that heard that. You're the only one that heard that. And then I'm being biased because I read their book, The Wait. And if you read their book, you can see it all up and through it. God didn't tell her that. God did not tell her that. This is something that she wanted. This is something that she felt like she didn't. He was somebody that she felt like she could possibly have, but could never have because of her background and her what she's been through, and just her position in Hollywood. She was something like yeah, this person, I would want him to be my husband because of the men that she had dated previously. So she just automatically, it was almost like an automatic thing, like, okay, this is my husband because he's different from everybody that I've ever dated. And it was it's so easy for us to take our desires and stamp God on it, so it could be make us more comfortable, make us more make the idea more appealing. And just because they got a divorce, it still doesn't negate the fact that she heard that was her desire, that was a desire of her heart, that somebody like him could possibly be her husband. And then if you read the book, once she made it up in her mind that this is what she heard, then she started making changes to match this person so that they could find her more suitable so he could find her suitable for him. And so but their values were completely different, their core was completely different. And so I don't believe God told her anything. I believe this is something that her desire told her that she could possibly have if she makes some kind of lifestyle change or whatnot.
Uh, I appreciate you for sharing your thoughts. Let's get a male's perspective. Jose, what's your take?
Yeah, it's crazy that Tanzania, you on point, like without question. Like the big thing about the book, The Wait, right? So I remember Megan, I believe, talked about being celibate prior to meeting Devon. So it was like The Wait was both of their concepts trying to get together and mesh, and it felt like they took that and made that a blueprint for the catalyst for what their marriage was. And unfortunately, I don't believe they realized that that was not necessarily for them as partners, but for them to align their relationships with God. And then God would then further do what they had to do. Because again, to Tanzania's point, if that were the case, the changes that she needed to make for her husband, she would have made before they made contact. They would have been consistent. God would have been, the discipleship factor would have been genuine, and she would have made the necessary changes in order to be the woman she needed to be. We all talked about this earlier, so that when Devon did get there, she would have already been set. Then there would have been no issue. But all the changes she was making was mid-marriage. You can't change yourself mid-marriage. It's just there's no consistency in you being true for you and then true for another person and changing mid-marriage to fit the marriage. That doesn't make any sense. So unfortunately, I think I think she chased this dream. I think genuinely she had this ideology of the woman she should be for this pastor who's now in the forefront, and now she has to fit this first lady mold. And you can tell by the way that she dressed, the way that her stance was. I mean, there's a lot that seemed to start to shift over to the Christian aspect, but she wasn't being true to herself. And unfortunately, she suffered a lot for it. I don't even remember what the divorce was for. There were so many different speculations. Of course, they didn't give full on detail, in my opinion, but some people were talking about she not having to want children, not wanting to have children. There were so many different speculations, but I feel like if that was an authentic marriage to the exact period that God wanted them to make, those factors would have been factored in prior to them meeting and actually getting married, and it just didn't seem authentic enough to me. And I
All
read the
right.
book too. It was great. I didn't find it to be a bad book, but again, what's going on here?
Thank you for sharing your perspective as well, Jose. And Tatiana, before we close out tonight, share your thoughts.
Yeah, I remember hearing about all the stuff that was going on with their relationship, and probably they shared it in the book The Wait too. I like that book a lot, and confirmed a lot of practical stuff when it comes to applying abstaining to a marriage while you're in a dating relationship. But there was a couple of things that were kind of like, bloop, bloop. Okay, what is this? If God told you that Devon is your husband, Megan, why is Devon saying that he never wanted to marry an actress? And let's backtrack before that. There was an interview that Megan had shared before where she said she thought she wasn't the marrying type. She said out of her own mouth that she wasn't the type to want kids. That wasn't a strong desire for her, like Jada Pinkett Smith. So you're coming out of the blue saying someone is your husband, and that person doesn't want to marry someone like you because you're an actress. He didn't want that. But because sometimes we can force God's will, or we can force something to happen because we think God told us to do something. We've all been guilty of that in some kind of way. But gotta look at the core of that person. Did they truly want to be married? Do they truly want to be married to you? Jada, Megan, looking at y'all. Because I'm mad at Jada right now. Post this whole Oscar situation, I'm looking at Jada like, why are you putting Will through this? He deserves better. But ultimately, it's like I don't think Devon was a counterfeit because, again, Megan shared she wasn't like the Marion type. If she gets married again later on in life, maybe she had a change of heart. But I don't see her getting married for a while. And that's okay. That's okay. If that's not for you, boo boo, live in that truth, live in that reality for yourself. I was gonna say something else, but I think that's it. Oh, I believe they're both great people. I've met Megan Good, I've met Devon Franklin. They are both great people. I believe Megan is saved. I just think her version of her relationship with God is her own. You know, Holly weird people are unique kind of believers. So there's that. All right.
Yo, I appreciate you all for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives. Before we go, just want to ask each of you to just share and let everybody who's tuning in know how they can support you guys. And if there are any last or closing words you'd like to share, feel free to do so as well. So let's start with you, Tanzania.
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook as Tanzania Alexis. If you do want to follow me, just follow me. But if you want to friend me, feel free first to hit that inbox and let me know you came from here, because I got a lot of trolls that be on my back. Same thing for Instagram. I am Tansy Alexis, and then I do devotionals every Saturday morning. So if you want to partake, you can visit my website at Tansy. That's TANZY Alexis.com. You can also go and purchase my books via my website. And what Tati said about both those two actresses, and somebody mentioning about Devon possibly being a counterfeit. There could have been a possibility that Megan probably was the counterfeit. We ain't thinking about that. There could be a possibility that Jada Pinkett was the counterfeit in the situation. We always sometimes, as it comes to women, we don't think about the fact that we could be somebody's counterfeit if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. If we're forcing our desires into the shoe of God's will, we could possibly be somebody's counterfeit. And I don't ever want to be nobody's counterfeit or stumbling block. So that's my 2 cents.
Hey, I hear that. Yo, Jose, definitely let the people know how they can support you. If you have any last or closing words, feel free to share them, bro.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all. First of all, Tanzania, I just requested you Um, I'm on Instagram as Dr. Inkwright. That is my company handle. Dr. Period INK Right. By all means, flip through the page. I am an author. Love's Urban Fragment is my book on Amazon. Please pick it up. Not for anything. I love writing and I love love, but my focus to I want people to see love through my eyes and understand that there's a better outlook to it. And love in the urban community and like in any other community, it does exist. We just have to be intentional about it. Also, just love one another and understand that we have to get to a point where we stop blaming God for our issues and concerns that fail. We have to be intentional about love, and we have to do the internal work first. We have to get on one accord with God's alignment, stop blaming other people for the choices that we make, and be intentional about these things. And if we do that work, we'll get it together. And discernment, we've all said at some point tonight, we cannot allow people or ourselves to misguide the decisions that we make in the directions, because we want something and it's pretty. That doesn't mean it's for us. We have to make sure that they fit as much as we should fit them, and there should be peace, there should be harmony, and there should be power. And if those things are not there, it's not of God. It's just that's the end game. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, yo, Tanzania, Jose, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on tonight's live show. Tatiana, definitely let the people know how they can support you. If there's any last or closing words you want to share, please feel free.
Sure thing. Yes. My website, my blog, blissforsingles.com. That's where we talk about relationships. I definitely want to tap into what we discussed today on a future blog post. So stay tuned for that. We have blogs supposedly every week, but I've been enjoying being a co-host with you, Jay, on this show. Last parting words. I thought about this before the show tonight. It was God having his best for you could not be a specific person, but a process to get to the point where you recognize that person for you. And I'll just leave it at that.
I like that. Yo, I mean, it's been on fire tonight. Yo, like y'all already see. I like that. I like that. So really quickly, Tiffany is saying, thank you, Jay, Tatiana, and guest panelists. Great discussion and powerful wisdom. If Doctor says peace, harmony, and power, yes. Oh, yeah, man. Yo, Tatiana, it's been a pleasure hosting tonight's show with you, as well as all of the shows. As I shared with you guys last week, we are counting down to our last show, which will be next week. And moving forward after that, I'm going to be pretty much moving on to During My Business podcast. And I want to invite you guys to come back next week for another Right to Real Love live show. We got a great topic for our last show. We got some hot guests coming in. My man Black Belt will be joining us one more time. But if you guys want to stay tapped in with me, connected to the things that I'm doing, go ahead and check out the screen or the channel that's on the screen right now. That's my other YouTube channel, Why We Succeed with Jay Emanuel. That's the business podcast that I'm going to be doing so that we can create more Black entrepreneurs, man. There's less than 6% of all entrepreneurs in the US that are Black. And I definitely want to do my part of changing that. I feel like that number is way too small. So if you guys want to continue to support the efforts that I'm doing, by all means, subscribe to the channel and continue to show love and support. But with that being said, yo, tonight has been amazing. Thank you, Tanzania. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Tatiana. Y'all have been absolutely amazing. I appreciate the chat. Y'all were on fire, absolutely on fire tonight. So I just want to thank you all for showing up. And let's definitely not forget to shout out one last time the MVP, Tiffany, with this comment right here. The church is now running like a business, and singles may not be considered a profitable investment. And that is the way we're going to end it tonight. Thank you, guys. We'll be back next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Can't wait to see you guys then. All of the panelists, please stay on the line. Don't hop off just yet. And we'll wrap after we are done. We'll see you guys later. Stay blessed.